Welcome back to Duluth Junction Workshop. In last episode we got this engine running. This episode we're going to try and make this thing drive. So I have a to-do list that I'm going to write up of things I need to do to this thing. One of the biggest is fuel. I got to make sure I get a consistent fuel pressure to this engine. I need to set up a cooling system, and that's kind of in pieces right now. So that's something I'll have to check and make sure I get done. And make sure the brakes are safe. And then I'm going to check the wheel bearings. I've already taken a couple things apart, but I want to make sure they're ready to go, so I'm just going to repack the wheel bearings. Oh, and the last thing is lights. I want to have some stop lights on this car. Let's get going. We'll start at the front. These cars had Lockheed front disc brakes and drum brakes in the rear. The pads have some material left, so I think I can run those for at least a couple test drives. Then I have this huge hub puller. Thank you, Jeff, for loaning me this. This is an original Saab hub puller because you cannot put a normal pulling setup on these. As a reminder, these are 5 by 170 bolt pattern. Alright. It's still greasy, but it's getting kind of tough. $130. So I pulled out the flex hose from the passenger side of the disc brake. It's sandwiched in to the chassis itself, so you can't get to it with a wrench. So you have to go inside the engine bay, and it is practically impossible to see at all from any angle whatsoever. So I'm going to do my best on filming it, but we'll see how it goes. Just obnoxious. No, I lost my socket. Oh. If you don't have a telescoping magnet, you can put a fridge magnet on the end of a socket extension. Ta-da! When they say made by trolls, they really mean it. Now that's a little bit loose, I can get it in this side. And with the nut off finally far enough, I can actually get a 5/8 on there. Now I accidentally got 4 front hoses and no rear hoses, so I had to inspect the rear hoses and I put them back on. They look pretty good, and I'll get new ones when I can. The rears are way easier. They still have that stupid little flange, but at least you can shove a socket on the inside and just pull it out normally. Oh, that's not good. I think that when we had the wrong lugs in, the lugs kind of came through and knocked the springs out. I did spray PB Blaster in the brakes when I thought the brakes were seized, so that's going to be cleaned out. We've already got some oil coming to the surface from the inside of the brake shoe. So I think I hit these with a torch about 3 times, and you can see there's very little oil coming through anymore, so I think it's ready to come back onto the car. These are cool because they still say Lockheed on them right there. Brake is done. Shoes are still dry. Gonna pack the crap out of it. Here's the driver's side rear wheel. The wheel cylinder looks like it needs a new boot. The wheel bearing looks like it was packed just before the car was parked. It actually is really, really nice. It's time to look at the fuel lines. So Saab was actually really clever in that they ran the brake lines through the interior of the car. They also ran the fuel line in the interior of the car. So I actually have pretty clean lines going through, but I got some rubber hose, so I'm going to try to replace the rubber parts and see if we can run some fuel through the original gas tank without doing anything to it. Wish me luck. I messed around with the fuel a little bit tonight, and I found there was an electric fuel pump installed behind the seats. That was what the little on-off switch was for. Really janky Bendix unit. I really don't want to take the fuel pump out of the car, but it is gunked up in there. We poured a can of Berryman's in, and I'm going to leave it overnight to see if it will dissolve a little bit of the varnish in there. But if worse comes to worse, I can either swap to this tank, or I can try to use the drain plug in the tank that you can actually access from the inside of the car. Draining it just didn't work, so got this little siphon pumpy thing. Not sure if it'll work, but let's give it a try. Oh god, that smells bad. Oh, it's like straight varnish, isn't it? Got the tank out. Let's see what's still in it. Feels like a lot. Oh, gross. Of course, the fuel fitting is also still disgusting. What is inside this tank? Oh boy. That is nasty. Ew. You can see the level of the fuel in there, and it's dropping crap on the ground. Gross. I've been trying to clean out this little chunk of fuel line, and it is just gross and nasty and hard inside. So I tried digging it out with a screwdriver. That didn't really work. I tried spraying some brake clean in it. That didn't. It loosened up a little bit, but what really seems to help, oh, I also tried an old spoke. That did a little bit too. What really seems to work is I took this MAP gas torch and just warmed that up. It'll just come right out. Doesn't smell too good. The original fuel tank from the car is over in the side of the barn. That's not going to be used for now. But I got this spare fuel tank from the parts car, gave it a little wire wheel and some paint to clean it up, and I put a new ground cable on the sender unit. And I'm using the sender unit from the parts car as well because that looks pretty clean, and the original one was really bad. And since I had to kind of burn the crap out of this, I actually threw some engine paint on it just to protect it a little bit. It was kind of bad looking, so I'm gonna take the coat of paint off the ends before I put it in, but to me it looks pretty nice, and it probably survive quite a bit more. Let's try to put the fuel tank in and see how that goes. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. This is really stupid. Okay. Get in there. I feel like the tank has to go forward more. With a lot of swear words, I got this in, and these are hooked up. I just kind of had to shove my foot against it and just push it in while I got that in. This little vent tube up here just snapped in half, so I'll have to get another one of those, but you know, she's safe until then. Let's go around and put this thing on. So I think the problem is when whoever cut this line before, they just chopped it right off in the middle, and the compression fitting has a little, like maybe a 1/4 inch of space that it puts in between the two pieces. So I think I need to Dremel off just a little bit of a line here. See, somebody at the Saab factory said, you know, Bjorn, we could just make an access hole for the fuel tank so you could just access it straight in and for the brake lines. And then, you know, Johan over in the other section said, well, you know, we wouldn't want to make it too easy. You gotta earn your car. So I think that's why they did this. Okay, I'm gonna pour some fuel in. You let me know if this thing starts trickling, okay? You didn't say anything. Come on. Can have old Pops throw some gas in. Nothing. Nothing. How much you? Okay, it's coming out. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So I got my fuel line coming out next to the starter. Normally that goes straight up here, but there's not a lot of room, so I had to loop it around to fit this inline fuel filter in. The other benefit is, unlike everything else in the engine bay, I can actually see it coming up to the fuel pump. I put a different tank in, I hooked up the lines, I confirmed the lines do flow fuel, and I've confirmed that the fuel pump does squirt fuel out as well. So I've hooked everything up. Now I'm going to try to turn it over, see if it will prime the filter in there, and maybe run the engine. Let's check if it's getting fuel to the carb. Getting fuel up to the carb for sure. Alright, we're going to try with starting fluid. I tightened up the compression fitting and adjusted the air-fuel mixture on the carb, idle fuel mixture, so hopefully it'll run a little better now.
Choke, almost all full choke.
It always breaks up. That's weird, right? Is the distributor set in a certain place, or is it moving around?
It's fixed.
Okay, I'm gonna go again. I was letting it down slowly, and then I tried to see if I could get it back up.
Whoa.
What? Is it on fire?
You got some wires melting on the exhaust here.
Okay, hold on. What I think is happening is maybe the carb is a little gummed up still, and it might just, like every time it gets more in, I put some Berrymans in the tank, I think it's slowly cleaning out a little bit too. That's because it seems like it runs better every time. And then I hit the gas and it dies. So when I set it to a turn and a half, which way did it end up going? In?
Well, I was going in and out a little bit to see if I could get it to run better.
So maybe we should check to see where it is and kind of set that baseline. What did you do to the idle? You turned it in?
Yeah, I turned the idle up.
Okay.
Here.
Cool. Well, she idles doesn't won't rev at all. We got the carburetor rebuilt. It's on the car. Let's see if it'll start. So you say the fuel filter isn't full?
Right.
Huh.
Maybe we should put some gas in it.
Yeah, think? If it fires off after this, I swear to God. What did we mess up? There's got to be something in the car that we messed up.
It should start on starter fluid though. Right?
It should. So the concern was whether the needle is seating inside the carb, and remember that the carb is basically a fuel toilet. So it lets fuel in here, and when the float comes up, it turns the fuel off and just plugs it up with the seat. So if the seat isn't seating, it's going to keep leaking fuel into here until there's nothing left but fuel. So what we're going to do is turn the carb upside down. First time I've ever done this, and we're going to spray ourselves with gas. And then, oh boy, that's fun. So the float basically thinks the carb bowl is full right now. Camera shut off again. So if you blow through with just a little bit of pressure, nothing happens, and then if you blow a little bit harder, you can hear some bubbles. See if I can capture that. You can hear a train in Withrow. My friend tells me that a human can only blow 1 to 2 psi. So because this is getting 3 to 4 psi of pressure, the needle is not seating properly. I'm going to pull this thing apart, and thank you Keegan, my old roommate, for leaving me 300 Q-tips because I will use one for the carb rebuild. See, it looked fine when I did it last time, but this is reading 30.5, so it's actually 3 mils too low. That would mean that the carburetor always would think it's I always think it has less fuel than it actually does, which would mean it would bring on more fuel and flood it out. I may have misspoken on whether it's bringing in too much fuel or too little, but either way it needs to be adjusted, so let's do that. So I'm going to bend this little tab in the hole. I'm going to bend it out to let the float drop down further. So I did drop episode 2 night before last. I would assume if you're here you've already seen that, but if you haven't, go check it out. I'm going to take this whole deal and just maybe soak it in brake clean or something. Okay, I'm going to throw this in with some brake clean and see what happens. So let's see if this works now. Hey, I don't hear any squeaking that's not my own mouth, so let's put this thing back together and see if it runs. want to give these something to grab onto. So just gonna tap those real quick. I'm using 832. Got some matching screws for it. I'm not gonna adjust the choke right now, but take this little pin there and you stick it in the middle slot. At least that's what I've read. And you wanna dump a bunch of gasoline all over your car if you can. It really helps. Looks like the heads of the bolts are too big. Okay, so I got the screws in. Not too bad. I should probably bolt the carb down. But in the meantime, check this out. So the carb seems to be kind of in the choke position, so if I try to open it, it always closes again. And it seems to like to rest around that. We'll see. It might work, it might not. Oh, she's dusty. You know what? We're gonna keep the old line. Hi. Oh, that is nasty. And I didn't have the drain plug back in, so the ATF went straight through